everybody, to another episode of the Bros and Cons podcast, where we're taking a look at episode 5 of The Last of Us, streaming on HBO. Hi, Becco.
What's up? How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Great.
Now, we know that this is a little bit late. I was sick. I didn't have COVID, but I was sick. So I just want to address that now.
So we'll get this out ASAP, and then it'll be back to back with our next episode.
I loved the way this episode opened. It answered a lot of questions about, I think, Kansas City QZ in general.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect nothing less from these filmmakers.
Yeah.
And it answered some questions about, I don't think all the questions, but it answered a lot of questions about Kathleen and her character.
Mm-hmm.
To see someone be that cold and to promise a group of people, now you'll go on trial. We're not like Fedra.
Right.
They're evil.
And the fact that she still did a jab anyway, where she was like, "You'll go on trial, but you're all guilty," so we know how that'll go.
Yeah.
Like,
she has this. I can't say enough about this performance, and I love
Mm-hmm.
Melanie Lynskey, but she's so casual in her rage. She's one of those people that when she's really mad, she's just like a little peppy, which makes her scarier to me.
Yep.
And what was her line? It was like, your informants inform.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just
Yeah.
it was really good. It was a good performance from her.
Definitely.
And I don't know, where do we go from here, bro?
Oh, yeah. I think they just really laid out the groundwork of how Kansas City fell and how she came into power. Essentially, it wasn't necessarily earned. I mean, it was a little bit earned, but she'd been a bystander in this resistance that had been going on for who knows how long, probably years, with her brother being in charge.
I didn't get the idea that she was necessarily a bystander.
Not a bystander. I just mean like she wasn't the leader. She was kind of like, I mean, she was a part of it, but she wasn't like anywhere near the head necessarily. She was just familial to it. And then with her brother passing, she just used that rage of what they did to him to start this resistance that he was basically too morally good to take it to this part.
Right.
And so that's where you see all these people that have this huge respect for her.
But yeah, I think that she used her brother's death as a catalyst.
Yeah.
Her rage is a catalyst to enrage already enraged people. Everyone that had something simmering, let it out.
Yep.
This beginning scene, like there's a couple shots where I don't know if anyone's seen the show Deadwood. But there was something about it that reminded me of Deadwood, where there's like this chaos, essentially like chaos in the mud. It's just this like grimy battle where there's clearly a losing side, and I just thought it was really well done.
Yeah. Like you can tell that Fedra had numbers, but I feel like there weren't enough of them once people realized they could really stand up for themselves. And the overthrowing of them just happened so easily once she kind of probably led them with this rage within her and just being absolutely sick and tired of being stomped over for 20 years. The whole overthrowing just happened so easily with her at the helm because she was just over it, and so was everyone else.
There's a great line in Chernobyl where it's something to the effect of our power comes from the perception of our power. And I think that's I hope I don't know if they'll explore it anymore with Fedra, but that's a from this episode, that's a big theme that I see here.
Yeah, I love how they opened on Sam and Henry and how they got to where they were, and kind of showing more about how Henry seems to have this guilt about turning in Kathleen's brother, but also he's taking priority just like everybody else is about protecting what matters to him.
And that's a conversation too that I want to revisit later. But it was good that they almost immediately showed like the way the doctor was connected to Henry and Sam. And let's give it up for the actors of Henry and Sam, the guys that played them. They were incredible. They gave so much depth to these characters who like you like in the video games and you're curious about in the video games, but like these were a couple of really great performances.
Yeah, I want to talk about Sam's casting a little bit too, and I love that they went over that in detail in the official podcast a little bit, where Craig Mazin said they just could not find a deaf boy actor anywhere. And so he just kind of said screw it and put a cast posting on Twitter, and he thought they would still get like 80 submissions, and they got 8. And it's just, that's crazy. Like, it's such a minority and a specific minority. Like, I think it's just incredible that they even found such an amazing actor that they did. I mean, he's just fantastic. So to kind of see him going into that, and I don't know if he'd even ever acted before.
I'm not sure. I can check.
He had,
I can check IMDb to see if he has any other credits, but I don't think he did.
I think this was his first role, so it's just really amazing that they found not just a deaf actor that fit the criteria they were looking for, but also one that was just so fantastic on screen in the role. I mean, he truly was absolutely perfect for what they needed.
Oh yeah. Another thing that I liked, and I don't always love the same scene from 2 perspectives. Like I'm not always a huge fan of that trick, but I thought this was so good. It's like you see Joel and Ellie just crashing on through from Henry's perspective, and it's good because it ignited him.
Right.
Like and I thought that was an interesting way to do it. Can you remind me how they ran into each other in the game?
Yeah, in the game, Joel and Ellie are outside on like the side of a building coming in, and as they come into the room, Sam and Henry happen to be in there, and Henry just like whacked Joel over the head and almost killed him. So they kind of just stumbled into each other. Really, it was all coincidence. I do like how here he saw them from the distance like he did, and it kind of gave him an idea of, we need to team up with these people to get out of here together.
And I like that it gave them, I like that their official meeting like gave Henry and Sam the upper hand, not in an effective way, because his gun was empty. He admits later that his gun was empty, but he's smart. It establishes Henry is an incredibly intelligent character. And I like the way that they flesh those two out.
Me too. And I love how determined he is to actually recruit Joel as someone to help them get out. He's like, we need you, and you really need us, because I know this city better than anybody. It really is like the perfect team up of for them to get out of there, because really, how else are they going to do this?
And I think Joel realizes that a little bit later in the episode, that like this can work. And this can work really well.
Because he's so hesitant at first. He literally says, I don't work with rats. And I love that Henry's just so honest with him. Even when he holds back a little bit, and he eventually does tell him exactly what trouble he's in with the resistance, but he still is pretty honest with him from the get-go of why he's in this situation.
It establishes him as an honest character, an incredibly intelligent character, and a deep down, and I think we this is fleshed out a little bit more later, but a good man.
Definitely.
And I don't think that good men are long for the world of The Last of Us.
No, they're not. It's very slim pickings out there.
Slim pickings. I want to really quick, I want to talk about the sort of explanation of it's an interesting setup that they set up, that Fedra was necessary because they got all of the infected out of the maintenance tunnels. And
which I want to talk about that a little bit too, but keep going.
And it was just a really, really clever way to connect that to what we saw in the previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, again, puts like we talked about in the very first episode, it puts a clock on everything, because now Fedra's gone, and we've got a crazy woman who won't tell anybody what's going on in the subterranean area.
Right.
And that was paid off really explosively in the end of this episode.
Yeah. So I came into some information just through kind of researching through this whole thing. Because in the podcast, they say they really only picked it because it looks similar to where they were shooting in Canada. They're like, that was literally our only reason for choosing Kansas City. I'm like, okay.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's interesting. Upon the episode coming out, going on Reddit, someone says, just so you know, it's genius that they chose Kansas City. And I don't even know if the creators knew this, but apparently Kansas City has old maintenance tunnels underneath it, like the city actually does. That I looked into, I couldn't confirm it. However, they do, in fact, 100% have a tunnel that's abandoned under the city that goes from the north side to the south side, and it was for a trolley from 1887 to 1956. So that is probably the exact one that they're slotting them into. Like, even if it's not canon on the creator's side, like, just the coincidences here, like, it really, for anyone that lives in the city, this is pretty common knowledge for them, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's just really cool to see how that all kind of worked out.
I would think that probably someone on the production team was privy to this, because if they already chose Kansas City as this looks exactly like where we're shooting, they probably have that. They probably had that in mind really, really early in pre.
They must have.
It's just that's so cool.
Yeah, it's just such a cool little piece of knowledge that all flows into one another and ties into the story really well, because they changed it from sewers in the games to maintenance tunnels, which works just as well.
Yeah. And I like it. I like when there's not sewers, and not that I hate that trope or anything. It's just like, oh, you're gonna go slosh through poop water, like the last movie that I saw. So
yeah,
I really thumbs up, good decisions here.
Yeah.
They also made the decision again to show a pretty iconic part of the video game, which was these I don't know what you want to call them, like little places where survivors went underground and created a life for themselves.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what that was like in the video game?
Oh yeah. So there's this entire section of the game where going into the sewers, before you even get into the sewers, there's a boat that you come across, and you find out this guy named Ish landed. He survived for, I think, like a month or 2 months or something like that on the sea, and once he ran out of supplies, he came in and decided he was going to look for a place to live and how to survive. And so he runs into some other families, and together they form this little community in the sewers, and that's how they survive for, I assume, a number of years that way, until inevitably someone leaves the door open, which from there on out, it matches up with the TV show, where they don't actually show any of this. It's all written through notes, which is a recurring theme in the game. And they did a little Easter egg for that, where they have the exact same drawing on the wall of Ish and
Our
Danny.
protectors Ish.
Yeah, and you see that exact same drawing in the kids area in the game. But unfortunately, in the kids game, it's even darker, because there's like dead bodies everywhere, and you realize that I think it was Danny or another guy that died with the children in there, which is so dark.
It's so dark.
So but in the show, at least, it looks like most people might have gotten out, because there's not really any signs of that. So kind of a positive spin there, I guess, if you really want to think about it.
I don't know about that.
No.
And that's something I'll talk about a little bit later.
Okay.
So I want to talk to you about what you think the importance was of including that from the video game. And I want to talk about the really, really excellent conversation between Henry and Joel here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, this is probably, I would say, I think it's, for me, it's not my personal favorite part of the game. I think because it's a stressful playthrough, but I think for a lot of people this is their favorite section of the game. And it is so important to the story because in terms of just kind of going through these levels, I think this probably does have the strongest sub story where you're finding notes and kind of seeing what happened to these people. So I think it was absolutely important that they included this kind of section of gameplay in the show to show how other people lived through a lot of this stuff going down. And Joel even references, he says, "Oh, I've heard about places like this."
Yeah.
So, because not everyone holes up in Fedra, not everyone is as lucky as Bill and Frank. A lot of people just try to create these communities as a way to survive and get through just day to day.
Narratively, I think it's important for a couple of reasons. It gives Ellie and Sam a chance to just be kids for a second. Like they get a bit of a break.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect opportunity for them to, in a space where people endured and survived, to introduce the iconic line, endure and survive.
Right. And those are two things from the game that I love that they included in here. One, where they're playing soccer, because there is a little bit in the game where they play soccer together just like that. And two is obviously Ellie's love for that series. And talking about that line and even acknowledging how the line is kind of redundant. I think in the podcast, Neil said he just did a synonym search or something like that. And he's like, what goes along with endure? And it was survive. So it just was like, okay, endure and survive. And it's so stupid, but it's like, I don't know. It works.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's fun that he's so cheeky about it. But it's such an iconic line from
it is. I mean, people have it tattooed on their arms. I mean,
yeah. It's this show has really so far been so good about fleshing these characters out. Like just something so simple as like Sam saying, "I have these issues," and Ellie writes back, "I have these issues."
Yeah.
It's just, fuck, man, you're making human connections here.
Yeah.
It's easy to lose sight of what it's all about, and this was, I think, a good moment of that.
Yeah, I love how their relationship kind of unfolds a little bit differently than it does in the game, where he's younger, so it kind of creates this, I feel like, younger older sibling dynamic, versus in the game Sam seems to crush on her a little bit in the game, and I really like this dynamic a little bit better, where he really relies on her and looks up to her, and she is trying so hard to protect him.
It gives Ellie a new role that we haven't seen from her yet, which is protector, which is, and suddenly again you see how similar she and Joel are.
Yep. Yeah,
it's really beautiful.
Like they enter the maintenance tunnels, and she kind of just like puts her arm around him as they start walking through, and it's little details like that. I love what they're doing with it.
Me too.
Yeah,
I love it.
And then going into the scene, topically, just going into the scene where Joel and Henry have that more important talk, where Henry really opens up to Joel and says like, "Hey, this is a horrible thing that I did." They use more music from The Last of Us Part 2, and I wish I could find the name of the song, but I scrolled through. I couldn't figure out what song it was, because it's a very subtle piece. It's like more drony and ambient, but I don't know, something about it just really hits, because I remember the parts of the game where they use it, and it's just so impactful. But I feel like it's perfect for what Henry is talking to Joel about, where he's saying, "I did this horrible thing and I don't know if it was the right thing to do," but Joel just says, "Hey, you did what you had to do. Your family comes first." And I understand.
That was, for me, that was the moment too where Joel recognized himself in somebody else, first of all, and I think he saw how it could work.
Yeah, there's just a lot of foreshadowing going on there.
Yeah. I loved this performance by the actor who plays Henry. Let me look up his name, because Lamar Johnson.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic performance by Lamar Johnson. He's everyone in here is like is so subtle.
Mhm.
And I like subtle acting rather than big boomy, like,
Same. Yeah.
kind of stuff. And he's so good at portraying just the guilt of a good man who had to do something terrible.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's the kind of person who has to survive. Like I said before, like, I don't think good men are good people are long for this world, of The Last of Us, but like,
Nope.
that's also how you survive until you can't anymore.
Yeah.
You do awful shit. Joel, Tess,
Yep.
you know.
Survival of the fittest,
Hmm.
you gotta do what you gotta do in this
Yeah.
world. That's why it's called The Last of Us.
Hmm.
That's literally the title.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so I want to take us back with that really, really excellent conversation, good writing, good performances, in that scene, over to Kathleen, where she's standing in, I assume is her old bedroom that she shared with her brother.
Mhm.
um, and she lays out in no uncertain terms that her brother would not have wanted her to pursue Henry.
Right.
He would not have wanted her to pursue revenge,
Mhm.
and she casts it aside.
Mhm.
Again, excellent writing and excellent acting from fucking Melanie Linsky, our
I
girl.
know. She's so good. I mean, it
Yeah.
just that whole scene really laid out, I feel like, the rest of the plot of who she
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
and how she
Exactly.
ended up where she is and why everyone is determined to put her as the leader.
Hmm.
She's just got this tenacity to
Hmm.
pull through, finish through, and do what needs to be done, even if it's stupid. That's the thing. And that's how
Yeah.
they end up in this situation that they end up in
Exactly.
just a
Yeah.
few hours later. It's
There's a
she's not the best leader,
yeah.
but she
The,
is the one that got shit done.
yes, and that's where I want to bring up the really important line again of like, your brother was a great man, but he
Yeah,
didn't make this happen. You were the one that
exactly.
made this happen. And it's like,
Hmm.
then it clicks for the audience, at least for me.
Yeah,
Like,
same.
that's the only reason that they're following her. They probably wouldn't have given her a second look if she wasn't the original leader's sister,
Hmm.
and if she wasn't so brutal that she created the right amount of chaos to free them from Fedra.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. No, she's ruthless.
She's
So.
ruthless.
Hmm.
She's ruthless, and she's cold, and she's so angry.
Oh yeah.
So angry.
So moving on from that, we now open on Joel, Ellie, Henry, and Sam moving into the neighborhood where the sniper begins shooting at them, which is another iconic scene in the game. And I love that they actually built this set from scratch because I was like, how did they
Yeah.
find a neighborhood that looks exactly like the game? I was
Yeah.
like, that is some incredible scouting. And then I realized it's a fake neighborhood. They just built it on a lot in Canada, which is also genius.
And also your dream.
And my dream, yes. So I just love that they captured every single detail
Oh yeah.
of this little cul-de-sac that they modeled exactly to the T after the neighborhood you come across in the game.
Yeah.
And they were originally supposed to shoot in the daytime too, just like it is in the game, like around golden hour.
Hmm.
But when they realized that with this entire scene they added with all of the infected coming out of the ground, fire and everything just was so much more impactful if they did the scene at night.
The
So
fire looks cool. Yeah.
they shot over 3 weeks at night, which is
Yeah.
grueling
Yeah.
for anyone that's ever done a night shoot. It is painful, but awesome. So I mean, truly it paid off. I mean, visually this entire scene was stunning, and I love everything about it. But
Me
moving
too.
to the back to the beginning of the scene, I have a very important question.
What is it?
When you play The Last of Us Part 1, do you flank to the right or the left? Because everyone goes one way or the other, and I think all of us that flanked to the left just cheered when we saw Joel go the same way. I have always flanked to the left.
I have always flanked to the left. I'm trying to remember because it's been a while since I was gonna say it's been a while since I flanked. It's been a while since I played the game, but I'm pretty sure I was a right flanker.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're in the minority there. I did flank
I
right
think it was
once.
hard. Yeah.
One time I flanked right. Only one time out of all the times I've played. And it was horrible. And so I've never done it again. And it wasn't the
Yeah.
first time either. It was like the third or fourth time I played it. I was like, I'm gonna try something new. And I regretted it. And
Yeah.
never again have I gone to the right. But I
Yeah.
think there are more supplies to the right, depending
I think
on what level of hardness you're playing on.
mhm.
So there's that if you feel
Left
ballsy
flankers
enough.
unite.
Left flankers unite. I mean, hey, Game Joel, or I mean, Show Joel had the right idea, and he went left, so he gets it.
This was this was so good. This was like an excellent example of how you interpret a video game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, 'cause this is pure Last of Us Part 1, and
Yeah.
they did it in a good adaptation to film to TV.
They did. Yeah, it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. And one thing that they changed that I found so interesting, because in the show, I mean, you have this guy just yelling obscenities at you the whole time.
In the game.
In the game.
Yeah.
They have this guy just yelling obscenities at you the whole time that you're trying to get to him and disarm him.
Mhm.
And he's taunting you and everything. And it's very video gamey in that
Mhm.
regard. But in the show, you get to the top and you realize it's just this 80-year-old guy who
Can't see.
can't see. He's just loyal to the resistance, just trying to like buy them time to get there.
Mhm.
And he's just doing his job. And it's just crazy to think that he's pretty close to 80 years old, and so he
Yeah.
lived a full life almost to retirement before this all even went down.
Yeah. There's an interesting character moment too for Joel, where he just so badly did not want to shoot this guy.
Yeah,
He didn't want to shoot this old man.
you can tell he's tired. He's
Yeah.
just so done with
Keeps
it.
saying, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Please don't do it. And it's a great performance by I don't know why I ever assumed that I'm prepared for this show after
No.
playing the video games. But like when you hear Melanie Linsky's voice over the radio, I'm like, oh no. That's what that guy was doing.
Yep. Yeah, one piece that I love that they also kept in here was, obviously it was in the last episode too, but where they have that truck that says run
Yeah.
spray painted on, like it's so horrifying. And they start running, and it's so hopeless, but I love how brave Ellie is and just shooting at it to try to stop them. I mean, it's so desperate.
Yeah, it's desperate, and I think that's so much of it is like, oh, I gotta get Sam to safety.
Exactly, yeah. But it was such a pivotal scene, I feel like, for her character as a whole.
Yeah.
You know, because she's really trying to lead or grow into this protector role that she feels she has to play.
She wants it so bad.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to do something good so bad, and this is like her opportunity to do it.
Yeah. And of course, inevitably they can't get away from them, so Henry decides to surrender. And I love that the exchange between Kathleen and him just really shows how shitty of a person she is.
Yeah.
Like,
also,
the way
just I just think that she lets all of the bad consume her. Like, she lets all of her anger and all of her vengeance just is so, like, who knows if she was a good person back in the day before this all went down. But
she might not have been.
But she wipes it all away just to be so fucking angry.
I know. And I love the line that came back to quite literally bite her, where she says, children die all the time. It's such an insensitive line.
Again, just the casual way that she says these awful things, like and like in the beginning of this episode, and no, there's not gonna be a trial, kill him.
Yeah.
And
then she says, burn the bodies, it'll
burn the body, yeah,
it'll work faster. Like,
yeah.
it's just so
and then
horrible.
she's just the casual way, like the blasé way that she just throws out these terrible things. It is interesting, unsettling and interesting.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Yeah. the payoff. What? Okay, I want to know your reaction of the payoff of a bunch of infected popping out along with the bloater. I want to know your reaction, buddy. Talk to me.
My personal reaction to all that chaos. Unexpected.
Yeah.
I didn't see that like
I didn't think they'd do it.
Because we've talked repeatedly how they really go with the small here. And then they're just like, it's almost like obviously people have been complaining about it online. They're like, this isn't enough infected or whatever. And they're like, oh, this isn't enough for you? Well, how about this? Like, you can never complain again. If you've complained about it before, you can't complain anymore that there aren't enough in this show, because they gave it to you.
Here it is. Yeah,
Here
exactly.
It is. You wanted it.
We talked before a little bit when like we first predicted that it was going to be a bloater. We talked about like, oh, I didn't think that they'd do that. I didn't think that they'd do a bloater.
So they actually replaced the bloater with CGI.
Really?
Yeah, in the podcast they mentioned that they replaced they did a physical, but the suit was too cumbersome and he couldn't get the movements right, so they ultimately replaced him with CG in the end. Yeah, but all the clickers and everything were completely practical effects with just really great actors and stuntmen and women.
I want you to talk about the moment that took you out of the episode a little bit.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, as an editor, I think we all have these things that are creative decisions that take us out. I want to say I understand why this happened.
Yeah.
Fully. That doesn't mean it was good though.
Yeah.
But I can forgive it because I know exactly what happened here to cause this. But and I think for a lot of people, at least filmmakers, they caught this where the second the bloater comes out and Perry sees the bloater,
reaction shot
of him watching the bloater come out, it just goes into this choppy slow-mo. And I'm like, I'm like, ooh, no. Also, suddenly 1982 in terms of editing.
I want to piggyback off of that. I want to say that like his exchange with Kathleen went on a little too long, because the bloater starts charging him, like running full speed, and he's able to like take her aside, tell her something, and then turn around and he's still running to him like, no, pacing. That doesn't make sense.
Yep. No, a little bit off there. But you know, I think it was probably so dark, they were shooting in 24 and they thought it would work to just show that like the shot was probably too short, something, you know.
I'm sure it does work for most people. Like kind of shit doesn't
most
take
people
you out,
aren't going to be taken out by that.
Exactly.
Well, I hate it.
So. I know, me too. I hate it. It's one of my least favorite like kind of tropes, I guess, that happens in the filmmaking process. But yeah,
it happens.
Totally.
It's fine.
Okay. I think like a big important part of this entire scene is this team up of Ellie and Joel.
Yeah, I loved everything about this, where there's already this unspoken bond between the two of them, where they are able to, she trusts him to cover her back, and he's able to predict exactly what she's going to do.
Yeah, you see this sudden flow, like through necessity, but the fact that they know that they can trust each other in this situation, like that's it. Like this is the good shit right here.
Yeah, and that moment of panic when he misses the shot, I think he misses like 2 or 3 times, and that child clicker gets into the car.
Oh, let's talk about that. First of all, Blue's Clues shirt, which really fucked me up because I love Blue's Clues.
Dark.
I want to talk about this really quick because you talked about how everyone seemed to have gotten out from the subterranean little community. I don't think that they did. I think that's true. My theory is that this little girl and a lot of these infected are from that community.
That makes sense. Yep. I agree with that, actually. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Kudos to the creepy little contortionist child.
Yeah.
She's real scary.
Yep. She did a great job. The way she rolled over that seat was just nightmares.
It's another scene. Interesting too, because we had talked a little bit about in the first episode, we talked a little bit about fine motor control, just sort of disintegration. Why do you think she was so good at, she didn't seem to have much motor control loss, and like the clickers themselves seem a little bit more stable on their feet, but why? And I want to riff on something a little bit later.
The way she writhed over the seat was still like animalistic and kind of uncontrolled to me. Because the way she kind of like bends over it backward, it's like a worm, you know, like a parasitic worm.
But that's a good point. I didn't really think
it wasn't
about that.
really human to me. It was like a worm trying to get its weird, you know, spineless body over the seat.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, it didn't really seem
less like a predator and more of just like you're seeing this thing that has infected them controlling them completely.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't seem like, yes, obviously it was very fine-tuned motor control. Like most of us could not bend ourselves backwards over a seat like that.
But it was so different from seeing, because if you were a runner from the first episode, she would have just launched herself. You know what I mean? Instead, for her to be like slipping around the
right.
That was it was so different.
It was very different. Yeah, no, something about it just worked for me. Where it
too. Oh, me too.
Yeah, where it just seemed like there was no intelligence there. It was just this instinctual animal trying to get over an obstacle. Yeah, like, you know, just the way like jellyfish or worms and insects kind of like just do their thing.
Just kind of blurb.
Yeah, they blurb around.
That's interesting. That's not something that I really thought about. I like that. Yeah,
I've
because
played with my fair share of worms through childhood.
Weird. And
I'm very familiar with those movements.
For being raised in like a bigger area, you're such a country folk. It cracks me up. I love it so much. I do think like too, because like at the stage that you're a clicker, it is completely infested your brain. So it would be interesting. I like that. But it did work for me, even though I had a completely different idea of what that was about. That I like that better. That's really interesting. So once again, we see that Ellie tries so hard to protect Sam by, did she stab or shoot the clickers that were after them when they were under the car?
Oh yeah, so that's another thing I love that she did straight out of the gameplay, is she used her pocket knife to shank him in the neck.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's such a useful thing in the game, because like to beat a clicker you have to have ammunition. If you're Joel, you have to have ammunition or like an object.
Right.
But with Ellie, you automatically have your switchblade, so like you'll like to fight clickers as Ellie.
Yep.
A little bit more than Joel. So she tries so hard to be the savior in that moment. And Kathleen ends up catching up with them anyway.
Yeah. And I love how Ellie just kind of like looks past her.
Yeah.
And that prompts Kathleen to look over her shoulder, and it's just like, that's it. That clicker just launches herself.
She was like Arya in Game of Thrones. She like launched herself at Kathleen.
And the way she's just like hitting her, like just blind, like scraping and hitting and chewing. Oh, it's just...
it's like everything that's inside of Kathleen is like external with this clicker who's just animalistically tearing her apart.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And you gotta love poetic justice from the kids die all the time, Henry, to I'm getting killed by a kid.
Whoops. Yeah, just great. And I think she was so killed that she wasn't coming back.
And like, rest in distress, Kathleen, but I'm real bummed that we're not going to get any more Melanie Linsky. She was
I
great.
know.
She is,
Yeah. She
I,
played the character to a T, and
she was
yeah,
great.
it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for her. So I want to once again, talk about how I don't know why I thought I'd be prepared for this show.
I know.
This final scene.
I thought I was ready for it.
Me too.
And I wasn't.
Nope.
I
Not even a
will
little bit.
say, out of the scenes that they've kind of like done almost shot for shot, like almost word for word, I think this is one that was done better. I think this
I'll
was
agree with that.
better in terms of performance compared to the video game. I really do.
Also, the setup of Ellie. Oh God, this is such a good scene.
Oh boy, yeah.
Ellie knowing, which wasn't in the game.
There was something so disturbing to me about, they have this little heartfelt conversation and she tries to comfort him, and then he reveals it to her, and the fact that she says my blood is medicine,
My blood is medicine,
and then tries to help him, it was like, ooh, that was a whole new layer that I just did not see coming. And it's like, it shows how, I think, just desperate and naive she is, because she
yeah.
I mean, it's just another scene where it's like she's clearly just a kid that doesn't really know anything and how horrible this world is.
Exactly.
And she tries to desperately just give him a chance at living.
She tried so hard. This is everything that she wants in this moment.
And the fact that she tries so hard to stay up with him, she can't, and he turns himself towards the window so he won't attack her in the morning. Because I think she gave him hope, but I don't know if he really believed it. Yeah. I'm not sure.
There was something about him still being deaf in that moment that really, something inside me ached. And not just the implications of it, but like in the first episode, you see that grandma, who can't walk or talk or chew or do anything, was kind of fixed by cordyceps, but he still can't hear.
Yeah.
It just something.
And also the fact that like it's still the early stages, so he's completely lucid as to what's going on.
Yeah. In theory, yeah.
In theory, which is just horrible to think about.
Awful. Yeah. Oh fuck! This was just, it was so well done. Clever isn't the word for the writing. Is just good.
Yeah, and good going into the absolutely horrendous scene where he's attacking her, and Henry shoots him. It's so well done, and just like the way she calls for Joel to help and everything, and he's just kind of stuck there while Henry has all the power in this moment. And I think this was really Bella Ramsey's time to shine more than ever, and it's probably the episode, I would say, with her best performance so far.
Yeah.
Where her reaction to Henry shooting himself is just top tier. I mean, to me, it's authentic. I think anyone that's ever been in a grief type of situation knows that it's not like the movies where people just let out these, like unrealistic screams and stuff. There's something very raw about raw emotion. That's redundant, but you know what I mean.
I do.
Raw emotion is different than, I feel like in certain situations you have this emotion where you can kind of think about what you're about to say or do to express your emotion, whereas
you're a little bit ready for it, versus
raw
something
emotion
like this
is something that you don't really have control over. And to me, that scene of her reaction to him doing that was raw emotion.
Agreed.
It was powerful and felt real to me. It
made me hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Fuck. I don't even know what to say about this. Like, when you play it in the video game, it was still shocking. Like, it's still, I had to take time, but it was also cut to black. You're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I remember my mouth like being agape when I first played it, just until, the next season came
Yeah, I do love the pacing of the seasons where it just kind of cuts to black and lets you marinate in what just happened.
on.
And
And
then
I think
kind
that yeah, go ahead, sorry.
but I also think it was very cool to see how they like obviously like they buried them like oh shoot that's something I didn't even think about,
Yeah.
but they took
And
the
I think
time
that's
to.
something that Joel only did for Ellie.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, he wouldn't have done that, I think, if
Mhm.
he were on his own. That
Even
was
even though he liked Henry and Sam clearly, and
Mhm.
I really truly do think that he wanted to make it work.
Yeah.
The only reason he took the time to stop and
Mhm.
bury them was for Ellie.
Yeah, he wanted her to have some kind of therapeutic closure to that whole
Hmm.
situation.
Hmm.
But obviously that's not going to be.
No, to leave it on Ellie having written I'm sorry on Sam's grave,
Yeah.
and then Ellie left Joel the way that Joel left Ellie after Tess died.
Mhm.
Ellie just
Yeah. Like she's not a kid anymore is what they're
Mhm.
showing, and
Yeah.
that's going to be I'm interested to see cuz in the game she handled their death better. It didn't seem
Hmm.
to get to her quite as much. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously it did, but not to that extent. You
I
really
think
see the biggest change in her emotionally after the winter section of the game, and you
yeah.
can tell she's just like completely um beaten
Hmm.
and really struggling to survive, I think,
Hmm.
mentally at that point.
I think this show has done a really interesting thing, and we've talked about it a
Mhm.
lot in past episodes, but like it really has established her up to this point as like just a kid. She's
Mhm.
just a kid,
Yeah,
growing up in horrible circumstances. But I think this is a big turning point for her,
I do
which is
too.
different from the video game for sure.
No. Now that we're through this section, we're on to what is probably my entire favorite section of the game is fall and winter.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm just so excited for where these next episodes are gonna go. I can't
Me
wait.
too. Me too. I'm interested to see what they do character wise and what they keep in the video game versus what they
Ooh,
change completely.
yeah, I can't
It's
wait.
going to be good.
Here we go.
All right. On that note, thank you everybody for tuning in again. We will see you tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we'll have it out
Yeah.
in a couple days.
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll see you soon. Thanks for sticking with us, and see you next time.